That's my theme music. That was an interesting theme music pick. I was expecting something different, but I'll work with that. Hi, everybody. I'm Wayan Vota, and I have the coolest job in development, or at least I think I do. I work for FHI 360, and my role is to get the cool tools of technology and figure out the appropriate ones to use in development programs. So today I want to talk to you about what I think is the coolest, newest thing that we all should be using. Activity trackers. No, seriously. How many people here are wearing an activity tracker? Come on, raise your hand. How many people here are wearing a sensor of some other sort? Guess what, people? Every single one of you is wearing a big sensor. Exactly, it's your phone. Thank you very much. And if you think about your phone, most of us say, oh yes, well of course. I mean, the phone has a sensor, it's a camera, right? And so we use the camera to take a photograph of things. And some of us even buy a phone just for the cool camera that's inside the phone. How many people here still own a Nokia? Oh good, nobody. Anybody with a Windows phone? Oh wait, one sucker in the back. All right, there we go. So yes, it's okay, it's okay. We'll still think you're cool, maybe. So in this concept, right, we have the mobile phone. We know that the phone has a camera in it. But guess what? It also has this cool thing, this audio sensor. People actually talk to that square box in their hands. Isn't that cool? And if we think about the audio sensor, there's another sensor on the phone that I think is actually one of the cooler ones, and that's the fingerprint sensor. How many people here know that the government has their fingerprint? Raise your hand. How many people here are okay with the government having their fingerprint? And how many people here have an iPhone and have already given your fingerprint willingly to some random California corporation? Hello, crazy people. Proud iPhone owner, by the way. And they've got 4 of my fingers, if I can hold up 4 fingers, already in their database. So we have all these amazing sensors on the phone. We have over 14 sensors at last count on your phone, right? And these are 14 sensors that you keep with you pretty much 24/7. In fact, I know that most people, if they don't have their phone next to them, they automatically go into that, oh my God, where's my phone mode, right? So you have all these sensors on your person. I take my sensor when I go running, also called a phone. And just with the GPS module, you can see exactly where I ran. You can see the elevation. You can see the speed. You can see it took me, what, 8 minutes and 16 seconds per mile to run. It's a slow day for me. And all this cool, amazing stuff. And you can see that how many times I've run over years, right? This is all with not that sensor that happens to be in your pocket. And if we think about it, that same accelerometer that's in your phone, if every single phone in this room vibrated at the exact same time, it's either an earthquake or all doing the Macarena, right? So scientists now can identify an earthquake and warn people very quickly just based off the vibrations of a group of mobile phones. And then in the health space, using that same camera, they've been using the camera on phones to diagnose eye issues for at least 6-7 years now in India, right? We can also use that visual technology to diagnose throat cancer or pretty much any ailment that's visible on the body. But again, it's not just a photographic sensor. It's also an auditory sensor. So we can see, and we do ultrasound using devices in the mobile phone. We can also pretty much do any kind of sensor you add to your body, and we can have it transmit to the phone. I mean, the heartbeat is easy, but sweat, and in sweat you can tell the electrolytes, so you can tell the composite of the blood through the body. I love this. They can take a sensor, they can look at light, they can shine light in your fingertip, and they can see the pulse, and by the color of your blood, understand the oxygenation level of your blood. Through a little thing you put your finger in, connected to a mobile phone. Crazy. And then if you think about actually taking a blood sample or a water sample, a sample of any liquid, you can find things like glucose or pollutants in that sample, right, via a mobile phone. And I know, these things sound really crazy and futuristic, and you're probably thinking it's millions or trillions or billions of dollars to do these things, right? Actually, it's not. Because first of all, a lot of Africans have mobile phones. They have feature phones. Feature phones can do most of these things, and we know it because they're on Facebook with their feature phone, our smartphone. And there's countries like Myanmar that are going directly to the smartphone concept. They're not even sticking around with a feature phone, right? So there are millions of phones in the hands of millions of people, and we can do millions of things with them. But then let's think about these sensors again, and let's pull them out of the phone. And let's think about all these different sensor components. And thank God for Samsung and Apple and their phone wars to make our phones faster, bigger, cooler, cheaper, with a battery life longer, please, dear God. And so in this aspect, they're really dropping the price of all our cool tech. So let's go back to those Jawbones and those Fitbits, right? You have an accelerometer, you have oftentimes an altimeter in there. And so with that, we can look at hundreds, if not millions of people and their activities. We can tell which people sleep longer or shorter at the city level, at the county level, at the group level, right? And through their human interaction, we can tell what's happening in their environment. Like people who are woken up by an earthquake. And you can tell that here, Napa Valley had the biggest sleep disruption from the earthquake compared to other cities in California. So you know where the epicenter is, and you can start thinking now, if that's one use case, what are the others if we have aggregate data of all these sensors that people are wearing? And that's just accelerometer or altimeter. Now we're having heart rate sensors. I'm looking at sensor technologies. I wear the Fitbit. These sensor technologies, we're going to have wearables that are going to be sub $20 in the end of this year. By the end of next year, I would not be surprised to see a $10 wearable in Rite Aid or CVS, right? And at these price points, we can use these now in multiple different environments, in developing world environments, but previously it would be cost prohibitive. And that's just the start, right? I mean, these sensors are going to be on everything you can imagine that you can put on your person. But now let's get past the person. Oh, even Band-Aids. Sorry, I forgot this one. So now they have USAID is investing in a smart Band-Aid, where not only is it actually protecting you for something, it actually is also sending information back to the healthcare provider to understand how your body's reacting to that medical intervention. But if we move past the human and get into the concept of using it for soil testing and for agriculture, so this is a sensor to understand how much nitrogen is in a leaf of a plant. And this matters a lot because China and India are the largest consumers and wasters of nitrogen-based fertilizer. Nitrogen happens to be a huge pollutant when it is a farm runoff. We see algae blooms that kill the entire everything living in a body of water, right? So besides just the pure waste of buying too much fertilizer and putting it on your fields, it's also environmental damage. So with sensors, we can have a better understanding of that. And while here in the US, we have AccuWeather and everybody else telling us what the weather is, in a lot of the countries in which we work, these sensors are now cheap enough, we can actually have microclimate data. So we can understand if the rainfall is greater or less than one side of the mountain versus the other. Now, when we get to consuming food, a lot of people in the developing world consume food, cook food in an open fire. It's pollutive, it's wasteful, and we are always working on giving them cook stoves or getting them to use high-efficiency cook stoves. And when we do that, we go back and ask the people, did you use your cook stove? And the person who has the cook stove looks at the enumerator who may have brought the stove to them and says, of course I use the cook stove. Every day, all the time. Please don't take it away. But if we put a really cheap $5 sensor on the side of that cook stove, we actually understand who uses it and how often. And you notice the discrepancy there. Hey, monitoring evaluation, here's your sensor answer. And now, one of my favorites, drones. To me, drones are the perfect sensor payload carrying device. We all think of drones as a camera drone maybe, so again, just that photographer visual sensor. And yes, they're great for mapping an area very quickly with really high resolution and have the community actually own those images versus asking somebody with a satellite for it. But we also see people hacking them. This is a group in Guinea. They've added other things to other sensors to the drones. Back to the visual, they actually look at infrared so that you can see crop vegetation and if it's damaged or if it's growing well. And we can also look at air pollution. And one of my favorites, water drones. So we can look at water pollution by either having an air drone take a water sample or have free-ranging drones actually swimming in the water. Pretty wild or creepy, depending on the way you want to look at it. So smart cars, to me, that's another huge sensor platform, right? And granted, there's all kinds of sensors, and most people in the developing world are not going to be owning a smart car. Most of them ride buses, right? But the cool thing is, what about a smart matatu? right? So that very same concept of a smart vehicle, so the vehicle itself has a bunch of sensors. But remember, who's riding in the vehicle? People with phones. So they have their own sensors. So that accelerometer, the concept of the earthquake, if everybody in the vehicle hits the same thing at the same time, hey, that's a huge pothole in the road. And if they're all slowing down or speeding up at the same time, that's how you get some of the really cool apps you see today, like Waze and others, where it tells you if there's traffic coming, right? When you look at your Google map and it sees the big red line where there's a traffic problem, it's because all those phones are giving back data to Google about it. So these are just ideas I've come up with, ideas that I think about and hear about. But really, I feel that we should be asking those who know best, that is, the people in the communities we purport to help. And they know how to think through these ideas. They know how to put a timeline together. And as my friend Varone here has proven, they know how to build the technologies themselves. He is the Steve Jobs of West Africa. Working out of DR Brazzaville, he is building smartphones and he is building tablets and making a mint. In Haiti, we see a company called Surtab putting together tablets together as well. So in these countries we think as least developed are actually some of the more high-tech countries in the world. And they're making their own solutions. So the reality is, in the development space, we often look to USAID. And hey, they're doing it as well. There are two challenges out now. One is around wildlife, to track and understand what's happening with wildlife to reduce poaching. Other concept is to track books to make sure they get to the libraries or to the schools and are actually read once they get there. So they're investing in it as well. So these communities have the capacity. There are donors investing in it. So we as development communities should really be using sensors in our work. I mean, Africans are already using phones, and as you can see here, they know the selfie, and my favorite, oh, you can't really see her at the top, the photo bomb. Yes. It took about 4 jumps for her to actually get caught in that photo bomb. But in that sense as well, we see communities in Amazon doing their own water testing, right? Figuring out if the water in their communities is polluted or not. So my question and my open demand of you is, why are we not using sensors or mobile phone-based sensors in our work? The communities already are. There's money available. We should be doing it today. Thank you. I'm Wayan Vota.